All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really fascinating. We're actually decoding the human hierarchy by looking at the 7 male personality types. It's an incredibly structured, eye-opening way to look at exactly how different men operate in the world, how they make decisions, and how they interact with everyone around them. Okay, let's dive into this. As we go through these distinct types today, I really want you to actively analyze this framework. Ask yourself, which of these 7 categories do you actually fit into? Or if you're thinking about the men in your life, your friends, colleagues, family, which traits best describe them? Keep that question right in the back of your mind as we go. So here is our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to start with the male personality framework, move into alphas and betas, then gammas, omegas, and deltas, cover the independent mavericks, and finally, comparing the 7 types. Stick around, because we're going to build up to a comprehensive master comparison table at the very end that ties the whole thing together. Let's jump right into Section 1, the male personality framework. So why do we even study these categories in the first place? Well, understanding these foundations is kind of like getting the cheat code to human behavior. It helps us realize that we're often much more similar than we think. Now, obviously nothing is completely set in stone, but we each possess these unique traits, emotional triggers, and thought patterns that are shaped by a really complex mix of our environment, our upbringing, and our genetics. Understanding that helps make sense of why we do what we do. Moving on to Section 2, alphas and betas. First up, we've got the alpha male. Alphas are traditionally characterized as being physically and mentally strong, highly confident, and exceptionally clear about their goals. They don't just participate in things, they lead them. With a super powerful sense of self, they naturally become the charismatic anchors of their families and their communities.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that there is a massive myth we need to bust right here. You absolutely cannot mix up a true alpha male with someone who is just trying way too hard to play the part. Real alpha males communicate and persuade with class and with respect, and crucially, they are entirely secure enough to acknowledge their own weaknesses. In other words, a real alpha doesn't force it. He just inherently is one.
On the flip side of that, we have the beta males. Now, if alphas rule through leadership, betas absolutely thrive through connection. Men who identify as betas are incredibly friendly and respectful. They possess elite social skills and a very laid-back view of life. Because they are so genuinely approachable, people just naturally gravitate toward them. They love being around others, they seek appreciation, and they really center their lives around building strong, positive relationships. But, there's a really fascinating nuance here. Even though on the surface, beta males might seem highly extroverted, some are actually quite reserved. They are essentially the peacemakers of society. A beta might actually choose not to share their opinions, simply because they fear causing conflict or stirring up negativity. Above all else, they are deeply, deeply loyal. They make absolutely fantastic friends, dedicated employees, and true family men who will do just about anything to make the people they love happy. All right, let's transition into Section 3, gammas, omegas, and deltas. Enter the gamma male. Listen, if a day-to-day monotonous routine sounds like an absolute nightmare to you, you might belong right here. Gammas are the ultimate thrill seekers. They seek out joy and adventure over literally anything else. Eager to live life to the absolute fullest, they're all about spontaneous trips, exotic places, and exploring varied lifestyles. And because they genuinely love people, no matter where they end up, they are always the life of the party. Now, let's completely contrast that frantic energy with the omega male. Omegas are deeply self-aware, and they draw their immense strength entirely from within. They don't need power like an alpha, and they really don't care about popularity contests like a gamma. Often fitting the highly intelligent geek or nerd archetype, omegas have a natural, almost magnetic pull toward intellectual pursuits. Think reading, coding, building technology. Because they know their exact self-worth, they genuinely do not care about the judgment of others. This profound internal focus is exactly why omegas so often become highly successful inventors, artists, or tech moguls. Then we have the delta male. Far more reserved, deltas look at the world without rose-tinted glasses. Often, this deeply realistic outlook is shaped by a pivotal past experience that just completely shifted their perspective. So the crucial point is, they don't want the heavy responsibility of an alpha or the wild, crazy adventures of a gamma. Instead, they focus tightly on the essentials of life: respect, competence, and normalcy. Even without a fancy title or accolades, they are perfectly satisfied and proud to operate as the reliable average Joe. Moving right along to Section 4, the independent mavericks. To really understand these last two types, we first have to talk about the concept of the lone wolf. This defines someone who walks a completely solitary path. Unlike the previous types we've discussed, these men simply do not need a traditional social hierarchy to thrive. They forge their own. Which brings us directly to the Sigma males. Sigmas are defined by their cunning, highly clever personalities. Think John Wick. They are completely unafraid to step outside the lines, taking calculated, creative risks to get exactly what they want. For a Sigma, even when they are breaking the traditional mold, every single word and action remains deeply thoughtful and intentional. Rounding out our framework is the Zeta male. Much like Sigmas, Zetas are completely unafraid to create their own rules. They are fiercely independent thinkers who outright reject the idea that they have to conform to any imposed societal standards. In many sociological circles, Zeta males are actually considered to be a hybrid, sitting right between the Alpha and the Sigma. They combine the commanding drive of one with the fierce, unapologetic independence of the other. And now, Section 5, comparing the 7 types. Let's move to and see how this builds into our definitive analytical tool. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole framework right here. This is our master key. This side-by-side comparison reveals the beautiful, complex spectrum of human behavior. You can clearly see the contrast between the commanding alpha and the loyal beta, or the huge difference between the wild, extroverted gamma and the deeply internal, intelligent omega. While the delta stays perfectly grounded in daily reality, the sigma and zeta exist entirely outside the traditional system, bending the rules to fit their own unique paths. Seeing these core traits mapped out like this really solidifies just how different, yet fundamentally complementary these structures really are. Which brings us to our final thought. Now that you have the complete map, where do you actually sit? Are you leading the pack? Are you walking beside it? Or are you operating entirely outside of it? Think about the men in your life. Do their actions suddenly make a whole lot more sense? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep this framework in mind tomorrow. You might just view every single interaction entirely differently.